Black rednecks, who are they?
These would be blacks who came out of the Southern culture and who carried that culture with them north into the urban ghettos and into the ghettos of the South, for that matter, and who have not moved out of that culture since. Over the years, both blacks and whites have moved away from that culture. But in the poorest and worst of the ghetto areas, there are lots of people who have not. And these kinds it's a culture which didn't do whites any good, and it's certainly not doing blacks any good today. And the tragedy is that people regard this culture as somehow the authentic black culture, and therefore you're not to interfere with it.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to Pretty Realist Podcast. It's the Film C. That's me, Shannon Nicole. Now let's get into this video. The black culture of today doesn't even know how it got to where it is right now. And it's not even so much as the artistic form, but in a way of how we behave in front of the world.
Knock you the fuck out, you tired ass. Your contract. Bitch, you so I'm not gonna do you. She not pussy. I know. Bitch. Good pussy. Back up, pussy. Back up, good pussy.
In a way of how we carry ourselves when we step outside.
What we call having too much confidence. If y'all see me, I don't hit this left, right. Y'all give these little young boys a show, goddammit. Yeah, that's me. Tussie pop, baby. Get my ass in this car.
Or how we treat each other.
Bitch, your fool! If you say one more thing, I'm gonna knock you out. Oh my God, I'll say one more thing, I'm gonna knock you out.
To commit murder in a West Pullman restaurant. The mother and son are now charged, both of them. Elizabeth Matthews joins us.
Is this something that we have created for ourselves, or if this was something that was handed down to us from generations upon generations because of slavery? Today, I wanted to give my reaction to another one of the amazing Thomas Sowell books. Listen, public schools did not do us right at all. A lot of the information that they were giving us when we were sitting in those classrooms was only to create more workers for this country or for this corporation that we call a country. Hate is not something that people are born with. That is a trait that is taught. We can't even have conversations without us going at each other.
I'm not digging you. That's not digging in personal life. I'm answering your question. You tell women to stay. Credibility. You tell is extremely talking about credibility. You tell women to stay away from men they're capable of, but you got a child by a man you're still married to, and you say he's a great father.
Yeah,
wait. That's love. So does that mean love?
Where did it come from that we're so okay with pushing our men away? And men, where did it come from? We're so okay with pushing our women away. It's the most embarrassing thing to see ever because we don't feel like family anymore. Something shifted. Something shifted so badly that we haven't even been able to realize that it shifted. It's like a Mandela effect that happened. It's like a Mandela effect literally happened in this country when it comes to Black history. The reason why we have become so accepting of this Black culture that has literally been fabricated, watered down, overly sexualized, and overly popularized as being drug addicts, holders of diseases, poverty-stricken. How did it get to the point to where these images and these stereotypes were put on this specific group of people? And that's what we're going to talk about in this video today. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Get you something to drink, take a seat. Let's get on up into this video, okay?
It's a terrible problem in our cities. They can't or won't hold a job, they flout the law constantly and neglect their children, they drink too much, and their moral standards would shame an alley cat. For some reason or other, they absolutely refuse to accommodate themselves to any kind of decent, civilized life. This was said in 1956 in Indianapolis, not about blacks or other minorities, but about poor whites from the South. Nor was Indianapolis unique in this respect.
Now, let me pause this real quick because I really want you to let that simmer a little bit. Don't that sound familiar?
A 1951 survey in Detroit found that white Southerners living there were considered undesirable by 21% of those surveyed, compared to 13% who ranked blacks the same way. In the late 1940s, a Chicago employer said frankly, "I told the guard at the plant gate to tell the hillbillies that there were no openings." When poor whites from the South moved into northern cities to work in war plants during the Second World War, Occasionally, a white Southerner would find that a flat or a furnished room had just been rented when the landlord heard his Southern accent. More is involved here than a mere parallel between blacks and Southern whites. What is involved is a common subculture that goes back for centuries, which has encompassed everything from ways of talking to attitudes toward education, violence, and sex, and which originated not in the South, but in those parts of the British Isles from which white Southerners came. That culture long ago died out where it originated in Britain, while surviving in the American South. Then it largely died out among both white and black Southerners, while still surviving today in the poorest and worst of the urban black ghettos. It is not uncommon for a culture to survive longer where it is transplanted and to retain characteristics lost in its place of origin. The French spoken in Quebec and the Spanish spoken in Mexico contain words and phrases that have long since become archaic in France and Spain. Regional German dialects persisted among Germans living in the United States after those dialects had begun to die out in Germany itself. A scholar specializing in the history of the South has likewise noted among white Southerners archaic word forms, while another scholar has pointed out the continued use in that region of terms that were familiar at the time of the first Queen Elizabeth. The card game whist is today played almost exclusively by blacks, especially low-income blacks, though in the 18th century it was played by the British upper classes and has since then evolved into bridge. The history of the evolution of this game is indicative of a much broader pattern of cultural evolution in much more weighty things.
You notice how he mentioned the card game. I really want to find out where spades came from, because I know that spades is very big in the black community. Pinochle, games like that. I'm curious to know. I think after this video, I'm going to look that up real quick just to kind of see where that game even came from, because I know spades is very serious. In fact, if you don't play spades in the black community, y'all swear that y'all want to take somebody's black card. Whatever.
Southern whites not only spoke the English language in very different ways from whites in other regions. Their churches, their roads, their homes, their music, their education, their food, and their sex lives were all sharply different from those of other whites. The history of this redneck or cracker culture is more than a curiosity. It has contemporary significance because of its influence on the economic and social evolution of vast numbers of people, millions of blacks and whites, and its continuing influence on the lives and deaths of a residual population in America's black ghettos, which has still not completely escaped from that culture. From early in American history, foreign visitors and domestic travelers alike were struck by cultural contrasts between the white population of the South and that of the rest of the country in general, and of New England in particular. In the early 19th century, Alexis de Tocqueville contrasted white Southerners with white Northerners in his classic Democracy in America, and Frederick Law Olmsted did the same later in his books about his travels through the antebellum South, notably Cotton Kingdom. De Tocqueville set a pattern when he concluded that almost all the differences which may be noticed between the Americans in the southern and in the northern states have originated in slavery. Olmsted likewise attributed the differences between white Southerners and white Northerners to the existence of slavery in the South. So did widely read antebellum Southern writer Hinton Helper, who declared that slavery, and nothing but slavery, has retarded the progress and prosperity of our portion of the Union. Just as they explained regional differences between whites by slavery, so many others in a later era would explain differences between blacks and whites nationwide by slavery. Plausible as these explanations may seem in both cases, they will not stand up under a closer scrutiny of history. It is perhaps understandable that the great overwhelming moral curse of slavery has presented a tempting causal explanation of the peculiar subculture of Southern whites, as well as that of blacks. Yet this same subculture had existed among Southern whites and their ancestors in those parts of the British Isles from which they came, long before they had ever seen a black slave. The nature of this subculture, among people who were called rednecks and crackers in Britain before they ever saw America, needs to be explored before turning to the question of its current status among ghetto blacks and how developments in the larger society have affected its evolution.
Did you get that? Child, listen. When I saw this, it really kind of all made sense to me, and I'm gonna tell you why. Well, how the hell did they get so in control? If we obviously heard in this video that even wealthier white people were against these hillbillies, these rednecks, that they didn't want nothing to do with them. They somehow combined themselves in order for them to gain control over specific lands. The thing that's crazy is that majority of the first presidents were of Irish background, of Scottish background. George Washington's family was originally from Europe. They didn't say what part of Europe. It's so much that went on when it comes to history, but a lot of it seems to all start with colonization. A lot of it all starts with people from other regions taking over the original people of that land. Bar none. People who originally were the creators of this lifestyle are now making money off of the fact that we're acting the way that their ancestors acted when they came over here. These same people who are in control of the media, of the music industry and the entertainment industry, of the movies, of the fashion, have literally handed down their original characteristics to us and are currently making money from it.
Wow.
If that ain't reverse psychology for that ass, I don't know what is. That's all I got, y'all. Listen, don't shoot the messenger, only receive the message. If it's for you, receive it. If not, leave it. I'm gonna get up out of here. Make sure you all like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back with the next video. Until then, peace.